being trapped in a narrow cave with a diameter of only 45 centimeters, maintaining the same position for 27 hours, without even a chance to move. This kind of despair is something I hope you never experience in your lifetime. On November 24, 2009, a 26-year-old adventure enthusiast named John, along with his brother Josh and several friends, decided to explore Nutty Putty Cave, located near Salt Lake City, Utah, USA. It was first discovered by explorers in 1960. The interior of this cave is extremely narrow, and the routes inside are winding and complex. Due to the large number of explorers, between 1999 and 2004, multiple safety accidents occurred here. It was later sealed off by the government for a long time. But many explorers strongly protested this decision. Left with no choice, it was reopened in 2009. However, some strict entry requirements were added. Advance registration was mandatory, and the group could not have fewer than 2 people. There also had to be a professional guide leading the team. John and the others successfully obtained entry permits, and upon arrival, they eagerly entered the cave. They crawled dozens of meters inward from the entrance, and found the space unusually wide, with almost no major obstacles. Most visitors, after crawling to this point, would take some photos and then turn back, because going any further would be more dangerous. Ahead lay an area known as the birth canal. The passage here is extremely narrow, and it slopes upward, making it impossible to apply force with hands or feet. One can only inch forward slowly using joints. It is said that as long as you pass the narrowest section, there is a space at the end where you can turn around and return. Just like being squeezed out of a mother's birth canal, you would gain a sense of rebirth, which is how this place got its name. John himself was someone who loved challenges, so he volunteered to lead the way forward, letting the others follow behind him. After crawling up a sloped section, they encountered a large V-shaped area, filled with many uneven rock fragments. They had to twist their bodies in multiple directions, first letting their shoulders pass through, then their hips, and finally twisting their legs to inch forward step by step. Only those with smaller builds and flexible bodies could pass through this area relatively smoothly. John exerted tremendous effort and finally made it through, but the space ahead for turning around was very small. He was tall and strongly built, and simply could not turn around, so he could only brace himself and continue moving forward. However, the cave map was only drawn up to this point. No one had ever ventured beyond this area. John thought it over for a long time, and ultimately decided to continue exploring forward. At that moment, he had no idea that this was the worst decision he would ever make in his life. After crawling for about another hour, John finally reached the edge of a rock ledge. Below was a very deep slope. He maintained extreme calm, believing the space ahead would be more open, so he kept adjusting his hand positions, eventually allowing his head to face downward and continue crawling. But because the slope was steep, he slid downward uncontrollably. John finally began to panic, and at this point, retreating was impossible. He could only brace himself with his arms and forcefully hold on. He shouted loudly, telling his teammates not to come down, and to turn around and retreat immediately, but he himself was stuck there, unable to move at all. At this moment, his headlamp accidentally illuminated the front, and he discovered another deep opening not far away. He slightly twisted his body and slowly moved toward the opening, trying to squeeze through this narrow space, hoping to find a new exit inside. However, before he could even react, his entire body suddenly dropped, and became firmly wedged in place. Only then did he realize the opening was almost vertical, and that the bottom was a dead end. His face was stuck right at the bottom. The entire space was extremely cramped, just like a water pipe. He tried to push himself out, but his hands were trapped and he could not exert any force. The more he tried to move upward, the deeper he sank. The surrounding darkness completely panicked John. He began shouting loudly for his brother Josh. After hearing him, Josh immediately crawled inside. While passing through that deep V-shaped passage, for safety reasons, he chose to crawl backward. After Josh crossed the rock ledge, he saw that only his brother's feet were outside, with his entire body stuck upside down inside the cave. He moved forward inch by inch, until his feet could touch one of his brother's legs. He tried to clamp onto John and slowly pull upward, but after 2 difficult attempts, both of them felt completely exhausted, and it seemed to have no effect at all. Josh realized how serious the situation was, so he quickly crawled out to seek help. Being suspended upside down for a long time made John feel increasingly terrified. The rocks were pressing against his chest. Even breathing became extremely difficult. At 12:30 a.m. on the 25th, the first rescuer, Susie, finally arrived. To ensure safety, she tied a rope around her ankle, and then crawled in alone. At this point, John had been hanging upside down for 3 hours. Susie tied a rescue rope around John's legs, then retreated to the cave entrance and began pulling the rope. But due to the uneven cave terrain, the friction was too great, and it could not be pulled at all. After considering and analyzing various methods, the rescuers decided to try using pulleys, but transporting and installing the pulleys took time. They had to first find someone to provide John with psychological support, because the human body cannot not remain inverted for long, and at this moment John's body had already been fighting against gravity for 12 hours. Due to blood being unable to circulate normally, his breathing became increasingly difficult. Over the course of the entire night, he went from being completely calm and conscious to helplessly twisting his legs, and even experiencing certain hallucinations. His wife tried talking to him on the phone, encouraging him to hold on and to make sure he came out alive. Until around 4 p.m. on the 25th, the rescuers finally finished installing the pulleys. John's legs were pulled out inch by inch, but when his feet touched the rock at the top, he screamed in agony, and his legs were completely bruised and blue. They could only rest briefly before continuing to pull. Everyone was extremely tense and dared not relax, because there was no movable space left at the top. To get out, his legs had to bend and cooperate. But at this point John could no longer control his muscles. The entire rescue suddenly reached a stalemate. Even more devastating, under the powerful pulling force, John writhed in pain continuously and passed out directly. When he woke up, he was already disoriented, and the pulley, due to bearing too much weight for too long, suddenly broke. With no other choice, they had to reinstall the pulley. It took another hour to install the new pulley, but there were already no screams left inside the cave. A professional medical specialist crawled to his side, and after using equipment to check, discovered that John had already passed away. The time at this moment was the early morning of November 26th. The rescuers had worked continuously for 24 hours, yet still failed to rescue John successfully. Even more disheartening, because the cave was extremely narrow, and John's body had already become stiff. Forcibly trying to remove his body was almost impossible. With no alternative, officials could only seal the entire cave entrance and prohibit anyone from ever entering Nutty Putty Cave again. The government also placed a plaque at the entrance to commemorate John, this great explorer.